Hi everyone, this is Drew Wharton from Nimble Leader, along with Paul Mosenson. Paul is Managing Director with Nimble Leader. He's also President of NewSpark Marketing. His primary focus and expertise is to build the lead generation funnel from initial click to conversion and sale. This includes customer acquisition and nurture, conversion optimization, media strategy, search engine marketing, content marketing, and marketing analytics. During our time today, we're going to focus on outbound marketing. This includes cold outreach, target list generation, and targeted marketing campaigns, all with the express purpose of building top-line revenue growth for your business. Okay, so let's step into find growth fast, drive more revenue growth through effective outbound marketing.
Paul recently shared a few stats that I think will help focus our discussion today. 78% of executives say an unsolicited email has led to a face-to-face meeting or event attendance at some point, and 79% of B2B marketers credit email as the most effective distribution channel for demand generation efforts. These findings are pretty compelling when we think about outbound marketing as an effective tool. For our first question, Paul, what exactly is outbound marketing, and more specifically, cold email marketing?
Yeah, it's thanks for having me, Drew. Email sent to a contact based on your target audience is basically, cold email as compared to, and they're compiled from online databases and list brokers to determine interest in a particular offering. The message is considered cold in sales terms because the person has never met you and is most likely not aware of your brand.
Okay, so that makes sense, but can you explain in greater depth the goals and strategies of cold outreach?
I can. Well, there's other components here, right? I call it interruption outreach because think about it. People are busy and they're reading emails and things like that, and they're being interrupted by your message. And hopefully we get to turn their heads with an intriguing headline, of course, and to make people open because you're appealing to their needs. And then the content of the email has a strategy to make people click and get through to a landing page. But generally, you need lots of touches. You got to test messaging, test offers, mix emails and calls if your tool tracks multi-touch activity. So there's a lot involved here.
Okay, great. So thanks. Let's jump into the mechanics of an outbound marketing campaign through use of cold email. So Paul, I've heard you say that the first step is to find your best potential customers, and there are essentially four components. Build your list, establish your email send domain, choose email send tools, and be disciplined with list management. So let's dive into each of these components with your guidance. Paul, explain your approach to list building and how to secure verified contacts. What do you mean by verified contacts?
Sure. There's plenty of databases out there. I'm sure most people have heard of ZoomInfo, and there's plenty others as well. And their goal is to provide databases for people to do outreach to, with outbound. They vary with pricing and options and things like that. But most of them have basic filters if you do decide to choose a database, including some of these listed, building your job titles, functions, industry, geography targets, company size or revenue, things like that, and plus more. And you build that list. And then some of the programs will have you verify those emails to make sure they still work, because a lot of these lists have old names. Sometimes there's third-party tools that do that as well, but generally you want to have a good, clean list with the majority of the emails verified.
Okay, so Paul, that's really helpful. And I've heard you say a big decision from a technical standpoint is what domain to send cold emails from. Why is this the case? And can you explain to the group what you mean?
Yeah, it's a little intricate here when you get involved with, cold versus your people who are on a database you already have in your system. But, there's pluses and minuses for each scenario. Now, if you're using your current domain, obviously, you're kind of limited if your emails are on Gmail and Outlook, because they do limit their sends per day. But the advantage of a current domain is, your domain is established, and that is an automatic factor to limit spam. But generally with current domains, it's generally good to focus on opt-ins, as we mentioned, names that are already in your database because they might be prospects or downloaded guides and things like that. Or if you buy a new domain, this is where, you want to protect your existing domain if you're going to do high numbers of cold outreach. Usually you have to connect with third party, what we call SMTP servers, which are, software that is works with servers to send high levels of bulk email. But also another best practice we mentioned is to get that new domain and warm them up. And there's tools that do that as well to limit spam and optimize deliverability.
Okay, so that's helpful. And so once we have an email domain, we need to send cold emails. I'm familiar with MailChimp and Constant Contact, but you've shared previously these may not be the best tools to send cold emails. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, for some of those tools that are popular, you do need to be careful. Some tools specifically are not made for cold outreach. They want to, protect their saving reputations within their email servers, but others aren't as stringent. As long as third-party servers like a Mailgun, Amazon SCS, and SendGrid are connected to an email program which allow large sends per month, you can do it. But you always need to be careful as a start. Warm up those domains as mentioned earlier and send small quantities to start.
Okay, so Paul, we've chosen our domain and our email send tool. Can you speak to us regarding your thoughts on discipline list management? What do you mean here?
Well, just knowing who those names are since they're cold, there's always going to be segments that want to unsubscribe and don't engage with you, of course. That's, it's a matter of having expectations. I mean, this chart here is just an example. Every list is different of a scenario based on 100% of a cold list where 30% are never to engage with you. 30% may open and click something in an email because they're curious. So that might be a trigger for maybe someone in sales to give them a call because at least they clicked your website or landing page. Now, maybe another 30%, may be intrigued with your solution and they may open emails and things like that. They may not click yet, but at least they were intrigued with the messaging. And then 10% might be a real opportunity over time. They will sign up for a demo or a proposal or even purchase something. That's like a bottom funnel lead. So it's basically, you have to realize that, names cover every segment of interest. But that's what code is. You're trying to engage people and build trust over time.
Okay, so what I like about this chart, Paul, is that it kind of forces you to kind of run the numbers, right? So if we have a list that we've generated, you can anticipate that 30% want to unsubscribe. And so then we have 70%. And then how do we kind of walk that through? And if I put my financial hat on, I'm trying to drive top line revenue growth and I'm starting to close opportunities within the context of what our margin profile is for the business. I can actually, play scenarios, in terms of what the potential is if I really hit the numbers here. And so I think that that's really good. Okay, so now we have lists. We've selected an email domain and send tools. And you shared the next step is to focus on messaging. So prospects have headaches. They're trying to decide if they should choose to change from their current solution. And they're wondering if a new solution will remedy their headache. So let's jump in a little bit further and discuss what gets the attention of cold contacts. Your ideal prospects have pain points, which is why they may be intrigued by your message. Paul, what are your thoughts here with this?
Yeah, for a prospect to consider a solution anyway, they have to realize, what their pain points are, as you mentioned, and they may wish their current solutions was easier to use. As I read the list, maybe they want something more efficient, something with more features than they currently have. Maybe it's a legacy system and they like it more modern. Maybe it costs too much. They like something more cost effective and something also that's long lasting and future proof.
Okay, so this is helpful. Well, these are the kinds of things that they're thinking about. And Paul, I like this slide. When prospects get exposed to messaging and even sign up for demos or offers from the cold email messages, they're still thinking whether or not they will make the purchase. So what's going on in the mind of the prospect?
Yeah, as they get exposed to messages, whether it's through cold email or calls or even salespeople, there's still, that decision-making process regarding when to make the change. They might decide, can we do it ourselves? What's involved with the change? What are the benefits of change? Is now the time to make the change? Is it easy to implement? Maybe I should evaluate competitors more and understand the cost benefit analysis to make sure it solves our need and is efficient.
Okay, so this is helpful. And I think when I reflect on this, really what they're running through is an ROI. If I'm going to spend the money, will I get the return? Talk about that and the cost benefit analysis. Now to the cure, are you the solution to their pain points? Paul, what's the bottom line here? What will get the customer to make the purchase?
Well, the difference is at the end of the day, are you the solution that they need, right? Here we go again. Is your solution easier to use? Is it more efficient? Does it have more features? Is it more modern? Is it more cost effective? Is it longer lasting? That's
Okay.
what we're trying to sell.
Okay. And so then once we've confirmed your buyer with pain points, what's the strategy to move the prospect to close?
Well, Joe, looking at this, there's really generally 5 tactical elements to this kind of strategy, right? Obviously capitalize quickly on interest, especially when someone downloads a lead magnet. Establish this cadence for this lead magnet. Even a separate cadence for pure cold outreach, before they have a lead magnet. So you need a plan for each. Do A/B testing for subject lines to make sure the message appeals to the right people. And always provide a bottom funnel offer, which we mentioned before, like a free demo trial or a quote, things like that.
Okay. So let's do a little bit of a drill down. It sounds great. So how do we quickly capitalize on interest?
Yeah, so this is where a good cadence over time builds trust, leading to these demos, trials of messaging and the value prop are aligned to the customer's needs. Drew, a strong nurture cadence needs to be ready, right? You got to respond promptly to leads and opportunities with really good content. And using an automated workflow, you can set triggers for publishing or sending relevant content that provides context into a company's value proposition.
Okay. And so what I like here is we want to be able to respond promptly. So there needs to be some forethought and there needs to be an automated workflow in terms of how to contact these people. So Paul, how does what we just discussed relate to lead magnets? And I know we discussed lead magnets in a prior session, but can you give us a refresher here? This cadence is mostly email. What's the goal, Paul, when leads enter the funnel because they've been enticed by a lead magnet?
Sure. Lead magnets are content, right? They're like ebooks, guides, and they drive leads because the messages that we send solve a business problem. It's a great way to get people into your funnel who have a clue that they have a problem that we can solve. But those folks who download guides are just learning about solutions. They're not ready to buy now, of course. And that's why you need a strong email cadence that continues to build trust. It's important to persuade this prospect to consider a demo or an appointment. I mean, even this example, just an example of an ongoing message that helps convince a prospect that they should consider a purchase through you. As you can see, the themes and the messaging throughout this 9-step process.
Okay, I think what I see here is I'm looking at step 1, that very first line. You acknowledge the download. And since we're dealing with lead magnet here, then there are specific steps that we follow in this process, this cadence, to convert that observer to a potential buyer. So that's very helpful. So I have a better understanding of that as it relates to lead magnets. But what about cold contacts? Is there a difference here?
Yeah, there is. Usually when you do cold names, I mean, the goal is to, get people to at least do an appointment or a lead magnet. But the strategy here is, remember, these cold names haven't engaged with you yet, but you do have a compelling solution. So you could have inside sales or SDRs partake in a cold sales engagement process, mixing emails and calls to get to a prospect to make an appointment. I mean, this chart is an example of a sales cadence using those cold names. As you can see, a mix of emails and calls, still trying to build trust, but also get those appointments.
Okay. Thanks, Paul, for the delineation between outreach related to lead magnets and cold names. They're different. Now, I'm also a big believer in testing, so companies don't waste scarce marketing resources. Can you share your thoughts on how leaders might engage testing before they make the dollar commitment for an outbound marketing campaign?
Well, as far as the emails themselves, the best practice is to test a subject line. If you have a decent list, usually start off with a small sample, and then you can measure, the open rates for each one. And then the winning subject line, you can deploy for the balance of your outreach with the rest of the names that you have. Hey, listen, besides email subject line, that's the most popular test, but you can test offers in the emails, even landing page headlines, and even testing different list segments by open rate and see which ones work best.
Okay. And I think this is really key in terms of the discussion. Oftentimes what I find is that clients jump into a major project or outreach because they're really excited about it, but they don't do the testing. And my sense is for just a few dollars on the very front end, to test different components so they can really optimize what that campaign would be and drive greater sales. So Paul, in our previous webinars, you've discussed the format of problem, solution, offer in relation to proper messaging. Does this format apply with cold outreach? And if so, how does it apply?
Always does, as a theme of any campaign is addressing people's problems and explaining your solution. But the ultimate goal, of course, is to drive leads, which can lead to sales, no matter what offer you promote. Building trust over time, sharing articles and blogs, providing insights, case studies, reminding of audiences of how you solve those problems.
Okay, so thanks, Paul. And relative to email outreach, you've also discussed the need for a strong brand template. What do you mean here, and why is that important?
Yeah, it's part of branding, especially when you deal with newsletters and outbound campaigns to current prospects. You should have typically a strong branded template, and of course a compelling copy and a easily seen call to action.
Okay, and I would think that template, that basic communication is consistent throughout the marketing outreach. And so I would agree with you. If you had a cheat sheet of best tips for outbound marketing campaigns, what would you share?
Sure. Test cadence strategies, the lead magnet versus the cold, and even, the frequency and the days in between. I mean, there's lots of things you could test there as far as, the cadence goes. Of course, testing open metrics, what subject lines and messages resonate with your potential buyers. And of course, you're building trust. Whoever's sending, you're a real person. Sometimes it's okay to be creative, and be whimsical, be insightful. People buy from people, and that's how you build trust. And from the tech side, again, if you're using a new sending domain, warm it up. There's different programs out there that provide warm-up services. And then, of course, start small because you do want to limit spam. And then, the list building. Now, again, earlier we mentioned there's many programs to choose based on the features and budget, check reviews, pricing, and the value to you.
Okay, so that all makes sense. And then finally, Paul, in your view, what are the benefits for cold email outreach strategy?
Yeah, I mean, when used effectively, cold emailing can help scale your reach and increase brand awareness, educate your prospects, and move them down the funnel at a faster rate than most other forms of cold. So think about this. Cold emails reach users where they spend the most time. Email, right? Emails are persistent. They're scalable. They provide, leads, over time when the messaging is done right. The messages can be visually attractive and informative than most other marketing campaigns, increases brand awareness. And again, they can be automated and tracked to optimize performance.
Okay, everyone, this brings us to the end of our time today. During the first session of this series, Find Growth Fast, we addressed the 7 keys to effective lead generation. During the second session, we reviewed tools to increase website conversion rates, shifting website visitors to buyers of your products and services. And during today's session, we looked at outbound marketing, ways to reach and capture new customers. If you have any questions relative to any of this, please feel free to reach out to Paul or myself. And if we have your email address, we'd be happy to send you a copy of today's slides. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.